go, and I'll hand it over to Nathan.
Well, hello, amazing folks. So glad to have everybody here tonight. My name is Nathan LaChine. I do a multitude of things in the foster care realm. Like all of you, I'm also a therapeutic.
Sorry, Nathan, that was me. I was letting someone in, and it accidentally hit yours instead. My fault.
It's all good. A lot of you, I'm also a foster parent. My husband and I have been fostering for about 20 years now. So we work with BRSU. So we do a lot of work with teens within the LGBTQI plus community, some high risk like runaway behavior. So if you're ever, asking for a consult for a mentor to mentor about like parenting teens or LGBTQI plus things, that's who you're talking to. That's all of me. So we are going to be here tonight to talk about runaway prevention. So this is probably one of my favorite trainings because it's not really a training. It's all covering about worksheets and talking about resources. So what I've done is I've thrown all of the resources onto the Google Drive. So there's literally about 40 or 50 different worksheets and handouts that are on here. I've broken them up. They're really easy to use. We're going to cover some of these handouts and we're going to talk about kind of the whys, right? Because at the end of the day, as a caregiver, we're kind of playing detective, right, folks? We're trying to figure out what's the why behind it. Are they running away from something? Are they running to something? Is it an avoidance strategy, right? What's going on? So that's what we're going to be kind of covering tonight in this runaway prevention kind of training. I have included some of the DCYF handouts as well about the runaway prevention and then also the debrief and then some of the attached forms and everything. So the Google Drive is live right now, folks, and I'll leave it up probably for a month or so. So please feel free to go on there, download the content. Even this slide deck presentation is on there as well, folks. All right, so give me one quick second. We'll get rocking and rolling, folks, on our presentation. So since we are recording, we will have time at the end after we stop the recording to ask questions. If you have questions as we're going through the presentation, try to just write them down or put them into chat and I will answer them at the end. Okay, folks? All right, so we're here to talk about our runaway prevention strategies. And this training comes in partnership through the National Runaway Safe Line and then also some of the updates from DCYF here. So when we're kind of, who is the National Runaway Safe Line? So NRS is what the abbreviation I'll be using going forward. They provide these nationwide trainings and specifically are always doing like the train the trainer model. So that's how we get out here into Washington State. They're always looking to provide better information, better services, and resources. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So here's their website. What can you find on there? Well, you can find all of these handouts that they've provided, but you can also find resources, the family reunification program, and information on how can youth get back home. Does everybody know, like if a youth is on the run, they can, if they want to come back home, they can get on a Greyhound bus, let the Greyhound bus driver know that they're a runaway, and Greyhound will give them a free ticket back to wherever their city is. Right, so that's what, the National Runaway Safe Line provides. They give just that information and resources. So they also are available for youth that are on the run. The youth can call in or they can use the interactive chat as well. So what are we noticing? Well, what we do know is that 1 in 30 adolescent minors actually are, in some form of housing instability. Right, so we know that there is a lot of stability issues. We know system-involved youth also have higher rates of homelessness and instability in their housing, and we know that we have to intervene. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. How can you intervene? What are the supports and services that are available? What are some of the ways of having that conversation, right? Because if you've ever, had a kiddo go on the run, it can be a really emotional, hard time for us as caregivers, right? You're wondering where the kiddo is. You're wondering, are they safe? Are they making healthy choices, right? And, you might even lose sleep for a day or two, right? It's challenging when our kids come on the run. So we're going to talk about some of the, what can you do to help talk with them and hopefully de-escalate the situation a little with them. Right. So when the National Runaway Safe Line gets involved with youth that are on the run, up to 60% of the clients that they're working with return home or are coming back into systems of care, folks. So this can be a fantastic resource if you have a runner, right? I deal with teenagers. My kids go on the run all the time. I want them to have not only my information, the social worker's information, 911's information, right? Give them all these resources. Here's another resource, and they will provide some basic case management support as well to help the youth, encourage them to seek out supports and services and return home. Here's all their resources again. So let's talk about what we have. So this is our actual DCYF resource form. Raising hands, just using the raising hands, or just raise your hand. I got a lot of you on camera. How many of you actually seen this form before from DCYF? So this one is out there. So what this is actually to help us as caregivers kind of walk alongside with our youth and answer questions. What can we do when the youth goes on the run? What should we be doing, right? The reminders. So that's what this form is, and this is provided by DCYF. You'll have it in the Google Drive, so please feel free to grab it out of the Google Drive. Now we're going to jump into some of the NRS resources. So what this is just to have a graphical representation of what is safe, right? For us, I can probably tell you some of what makes me feel safe. What are comfortable words, right? About my place. Well, I have my stuff, I have my animals, I have my fur babies, right? What we're trying to do here is have the kids actually identify what what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel comfortable at their home. So this is one of the many worksheets we're just going to be covering today, folks. So decision tree. This is a fantastic, fantastic resource because what causes a lot of our kids to run? Usually it's that instantaneous, right? They're just like, oh, I'm just avoiding something. I'm upset with something. I'm not really processing, right? That prefrontal cortex isn't engaged with a lot of our kids, right? We know our kids are neurodivergent. Sometimes they make rash decisions, right? Well, let's help them graph it out. That's what this worksheet is about. So this is called the decision tree. Directions are on the front of it, but basically you write your problem down on the bottom, whatever it is. And when you're doing this worksheet with the kids, please it doesn't matter what the problem is if you think it's a little problem or a big problem. A problem's a problem, right? Perception's reality. Work with them on it. They write their problems down and they get to write all the pros and cons of whatever choice they're about to make, right? This is, again, it's just a graphical way of helping them to process, get their prefrontal cortex re-engaged, right? Maybe calm them down a little so they're able to really start thinking about, do I really want to go on the run again? Is that really how angry I am? All right. So thinking about, where are we hearing messages? So this one, I wouldn't use this worksheet if the kiddo's planning on, going on the run or you're in that crisis mode. This would be more of a talking point of, what are the kids hearing, right? Because their kids are so interconnected with cell phones and technology, right? 95% of American teens report that they have daily internet access. So what are those messages that the kids are hearing about using substances? Right? Well, that's what we're talking about here. Break it down. What are the messages they're hearing through music, movies, or television? I really would update this one to maybe say social media, right? Because that's where a lot of kids are getting their information about substances. Sometimes when kids are going on the run, are they running to a substance because that's their coping mechanism? Could be, right? Is that their way of self-medicating? So, how do we have these conversations with our kids? Well, guess what? Here's our family communication tip sheet. So as you're going kind of through this, these are just the top 10. You know your kids better. You know when's their optimum time to have some of these conversations, right? So this is just to kind of help set things up for success. So one of the big things is set the time aside. Okay, that means everybody, including the caregivers, we're all going to be active listeners, right? So that means we're putting our phones on silent. That means that we're not having the TV going in the background. We're not reading something. We're not doing paperwork, right? Everybody's actively engaged. We want to make sure that everybody feels seen and heard, right? So that means if I'm talking for 5 minutes as a foster parent, my kids should have the right to talk for that 5 minutes, right? We want to make sure everybody feels that they are on the same level. They're being seen, heard, and valued. We want to try to get collaborative thought processes going. So one of the ways we can collaborate is using brainstorming, right? Get some paper together, everybody start writing ideas out. What are the challenges? What's maybe one of the causes for one of the reasons that the kiddo went on the run recently? How can we resolve that? What can we do differently? Could maybe the kid having permission then to maybe run around the block a couple of times or walk in the backyard, or when they get so upset, we want them to have 20 minutes that they can just be in their room and we as caregivers won't go after them for 20 minutes, right? Giving them that time to kind of just debrief, right? Identifying what are the resources that they could access, and identifying who really is their champions, who is there to support them throughout their situations with us. All right. So again, this is a family matters one. So this is just so we can again draw out and give kind of a graphical representation. This worksheet works really well, especially for younger kids to have these conversations, right? Again, just another way of figuring out kind of who's responsible for what, right? I think this is critically important for a lot of our kids because when you start working with teenagers, so many teenagers take responsibility for their friends, right? For other people. Let's really break it down. Who's responsible for what in your household, right? Some of our kids are parentified. They're used to being able to run the streets. They're used to coming and going as they please, right? They're used to feeding themselves, doing their own shopping, all of these things, right? But we need to, again, readdress who's responsible for what in the household and encourage them to be kids, not be adults, right? So this is just a fun little way, again, of just the acronym of TALK, right? We want to make sure that we're being timely in our discussions with our kids. We want to make sure that it's appropriate conversation, bringing it up at the right moment. So I can tell you, I don't know what it is about the car, but right, car rides are usually the fantastic time to bring up some challenges, right? I don't know if it's just like the vibration of the car or that they're trapped because you're going 60 miles an hour down the freeway, but I've had some really great conversations with my kids, right? So think about that. Think about the location because sometimes location matters, right? Also, think about what is it you want to talk about, right? What are the main points you want to bring up? Kind of game plan a little before you decide to have this talk, right? Right. So again, just another great little worksheet, is being able to define how am I feeling, right? Who's being listening, who's not listening, right? Who's not giving me the opportunities to finish my thoughts. Again, this is all about empowering. The more that we can empower our youth, the better. Right. So, I messages, right? So important for our kids to be able to talk about, how they're really feeling. This is something that we just don't talk enough about. So what we're doing here is this is really kind of creating their profile for them and helping them really think about when do I feel happy? Who do I feel safe with, right? Because those are things that a lot of our kids just don't think about. Also, this helps with that self-image of like, how do they describe themselves? Do they describe themselves as, a good kid, a bad kid, a smart kid, an athletic kid, right? This just gives us that space to start understanding where is our kiddo's mindset, how we can help support them. Maybe we can start layering on if they go, well, how do I spend my spare time? Nothing, I'm always bored, I'm just staying in my room. Well, that's either a really bored kid or that's my teenager. It's one of the two, right? So this is also where we can find out, is there new interests or hobbies that they might want to explore, or is there something we can help encourage them to do, right? Start building those community-based resources, right? Some of the stability that happens by having, connection to the community, whether it be through a club, whether it be through sports, whether it be through, religious services, right? Whatever it is, the more that we can layer in community, the better for these kiddos. So this is, kind of an evaluation form. This one I grabbed from their website. If you don't have one, this can be really helpful of just identifying, when did the kid call, how did things go when they're on the run, what is the information recording, what is the debrief, right? So when kids go on the run and they come back, usually to group care centers, you have a debrief form. How many of us have a debrief form at our house? Right? I do, because I want to try to get to root causes. What caused my kiddo to get that overwhelmed that they decided to take off? right? Is it something I said? Is it how I said it? Is it something they're going through, right? How are we getting to these root causes? So DCYF has a debrief form. This is an evaluation form that the NRS uses. This is their most up-to-date form. So feel free to print it off, reuse it as much as you need, folks. So when we're talking about the 4 qualities of life, we talk a lot about school health, right? I think we all kind of understand, well, education supports education, right? We get report cards. We know how our kids are doing usually in the school system, but what are some of the other domains? Well, some of the other domains is, are they physically healthy? Are they engaging in community? Are they having peer relationships? Are they having friendships? What's their emotional health and stability right now? What's their spiritual health? Are our kids attending services? Are they feeling connected? Are they not feeling connected, right? These are all kind of the 4 quadrants that NRS has really identified that can be warning signs if kids aren't in good health. So this is their personal shield. So this is what can they do to strengthen all 4 of those domains that NRS has identified. What can they do to increase their physical health, emotional, spiritual, and social health? Pretty sure most of our kids can, fill out the social. What do I want to do? I want to hang out with my friends more. I want unlimited internet time. I want more spending money. Okay, well, what can they do for their physical health? Right? This is where we start having that conversation, that brainstorm. What can you do to increase kind of your protection and your health in your physical? Well, maybe if you want a little bit more allowance, you're going to do a little more yard work, or you're going to help around the house more, right? What can they do to build up their emotional health? Who are their friends that they talk to when they're feeling stressed or triggered? What resources are available that they're aware of if they'd like to talk to somebody, right? Do they need to have the teen crisis line? Do they need to have the Trevor Project chat program? Do they need to have their WISE team after hours number programmed in, right? What are they doing there? What are they doing for spiritual? Do they want to attend services? Do they want to, have more of their own personal services in their home? Are they Wiccan? Are they part of the tribal community and they want to attend, gatherings and canoe journeys or salmon bakes or powwows, right? What are we doing in each of these 4 domains to help build up their shield? So life goals can be incredibly critical for a lot of our kiddos. For the kids to, really be able to project themselves into the future is a skill. Sometimes you might have to have a daily goal, right? What's your daily goal? Well, just waking up on time can be your daily goal, right? And we want to build on successes because so many of our kids have heard negative things, right? They've always been told negative things about themselves. So how do we build up, that bucket, that reservoir of good? Well, we set goals in place. We then have them achievable and then we move them forward. So it might be this week is like daily goals. Maybe next week we do every other day goals, right? But what are some of the goals that kiddos want? The more you can get them to project themselves into the future, the more stabilization you might see in their emotional, right? Because they're starting to see that I'm good, I can achieve things, and I'm working towards my goals, right? So you might have a goal of doing extra chores around the house to save money because they want to buy a bike, or let's just be honest, they want to buy a PlayStation, right? Or they want to buy an Xbox. Okay, well, for a $500 purchase, you're going to have to work towards that and making that a goal and then breaking it down. Well, every day you could earn $5 by doing these extra chores, right? That can help stabilize the kids. That is helping with their emotional kind of shield, right? Because they are being successful, they're working towards that goal, they're projecting themselves into the future, right? That is a stabilization factor. So that's just what this little goal sheet is all about, folks. The great thing with this is you're only asked to do 3 goals. And even if the kiddo can just do 1 goal, just to get the ball rolling, that's perfect, right? We just want them starting to think about all of this. So, qualities of a friend. Oh, what is a good friend? Well, what do our kids think? right? So many of our kids don't know what a good equal friendship and partnership is, right? A lot of our kids might fall into the wrong crowd, get taken advantage of in friendships, get talked into doing crazy things. Well, if you want to hang out with us, you got to do X, Y, Z, right? So we want to help them identify what are they looking for in those friendships, right? Because a lot of our kids haven't had, great examples for them to really look at and see, oh, well, this is what a friendship is. This is what that looks like, right? This is a give and take. So helping them identify these things. So what are they looking for in a friend? What's important to them? Right? This is also a really good worksheet if you have kiddos that kind of get in the same friend group or get, themselves in trouble over and over, and you're like, why are we going through the same thing? Well, let's take a look. What are the qualities you said you wanted in that friend? So once we have this, now we have to talk about relationships. Oh my gosh, does everybody know teens seem to be in relationships at like 12 years old now, and they seem to go through lots of partners. They don't know what real healthy relationships are. Well, this seems to be a topic we don't talk enough about with our kids. Have our kids been witness to healthy, appropriate relationships? Unfortunately, what we know is IPV, intimate partner violence, is on the rise in the younger generations. Domestic violence is on the rise in the younger generations. And it's because they don't know what a healthy relationship is. They don't know what boundaries are. Help them understand this, right? This is a great little tool you can utilize to talk about, remember you wrote down all these qualities of friendships. Let's write down what are you looking for in a relationship. Let's talk about you shouldn't always be threatened with, I'll break up with you if you don't do this. Is that a healthy, unhealthy, or is that an abusive relationship? Right? Helping them identify these is so important. It's just like the social emotional learning. How many of our kids are able to talk about their feelings? Right? If we can't give them the vocabulary to express what they're feeling, what they're going through, how are we supporting them? So this one you take, and what you do is you just cut up all of these situation cards and you just run through it using this, and they can put it on the abusive, the unhealthy, or the healthy. So you can make additional ones, totally fine. And just kind of move it around and ask them, well, let's see here. Let's just pick one at random. Well, threatens me. Is that a healthy part of a relationship, or an abusive part, or an unhealthy? Right? How about humiliates me? Is that healthy, unhealthy? Right? Helping these kids truly understand what a relationship is supposed to be, it can be really critical for them. A lot of the kids find their, well, I feel like I have to be in a relationship. Well, you don't have to be in a relationship at all, right? If you choose to be in a relationship. So just helping them understand those things. I think that top left one is one of my favorites about supporting my choices. How supportive is that person in the relationship for them, right? Because it's not always what your other partner wants to do, folks. So we do know foster youth are at higher risks for runaway, and we unfortunately know is that most statistics peg it between 60 and 90% of all kids that were involved in the foster care system have been traffic survivors, right? So we know most of the traffic survivors that are recovered, they say they were part of the foster care system. So that's a system of care. So that's why runaway, if we can talk about this and we can encourage them not to run and put themselves at these higher risks, we're doing so much harm reduction work, right? Because being in foster care makes them at risk. When they go on the run, how do they get their basic needs met, folks? Right? We want to keep our kids safe. When they're on the streets and they're on the run, they are not safe. So this is one of the many forums that DCYF has produced for us to really talk about, kind of what are some of the warning signs of why kids may go on the run. What are some of the historical factors we know? So some of the, we know that if there's a history of, substance use within the family or with the youth, mental health, challenges. But also the other thing is think about, the high risk behaviors that kids will engage in. How emotionally stable are they? Do they jump to doing things, right? Those can be indicators of poor impulse control, right? And might be a warning factor. Skipping school, not being where they're supposed to be, right? Being truant can also be another warning sign that we want to be on the lookout for. So I want us to always kind of think about what can you do? Well, let's talk about our prevention plan. Well, what is our youth runaway prevention plan? And that can be as simple as, well, the youth gets, if they get upset at me, they can, go to the park, they can go to the backyard, they can go to their room, they get X amount of minutes, right? So we identify a safe space for them where they feel they can disconnect from us at all times, right? Then we can talk about things later. Having the youth tell us what calms you down, what makes you feel safe, right? Because a lot of our kids are running because maybe they're running to something, they're afraid of something, they don't feel safe, right? So what is it that helps reground them, right? Is that a breathing technique? Is that spending time with a fur baby, right? What is it that we can do? What can we layer on then also to help reduce, what was the main cause of them running to begin with? Is it that they want to see their family of origin? They want to see their chosen family. A lot of kids that have been in the foster care system for any significant amount of time have a lot of friends, right? Because they've moved from home to home. They've potentially, been in different group care centers. And these other kids that they engage with, are just as important as their blood family. So how can we maybe support visitation for these chosen family members? How can we maybe say, well, you know what, I think it'd be better if we schedule this for the weekend or have them come over or have you go over, right? Trying to, figure out what is it that they're running to. If, the kiddo is really struggling and is trying to find, their kind of voice and feel empowered and listened to, well, maybe we give some latitude on curfew time. Or maybe on the weekends they get, maybe additional 30 minutes, right? Don't have sometimes having those really hard and fast rules might not let the youth feel like they're able to, express themselves. So think about what can you give up on that, Sometimes maybe I do, well, 7 o'clock on school nights, but you can stay out till 8 o'clock on the weekends. Right? Maybe if they're with their friends and this caregiver, them specifically, well, maybe you can, well, if you're over at Billy Bob's house, you can stay there for that extra half hour or hour or whatever it is, right? So just thinking about what can you give up to make the youth feel empowered. So the other thing too is what maybe are some of the life skills we can build into this? Well, think about, being responsible for time is time management. Is also teaching them about, what they're going to need a skill for being in the real world once they become adults. Helping them also, where are you going? Where is it safe? What are you running to? So if they're running to a specific place, so I know I'm down in the Lakewood area. We have kids that go on the run, and if we know the kid is going up to Seattle, the kid is going to down in Vancouver. We're going to make sure that they know the resources for the DCYF offices down in those areas. Where's the drop-in shelters, right? Make sure the kids know where they can go to be safe. Everybody knows if, all of our kids can carry Narcan on them now. Everybody know, I hope you all know that. So again, maybe the kid needs to have Narcan on them, right? As a safety measure. Have we told our kids that if they're ever with somebody or they themselves are overdosing, they can call 911. 911 will not, they're not there to press charges and arrest the kids. They're there to save the kid's life. Have all of us told our kids that? You can call 911 if somebody's overdosing. The police aren't there to arrest. They're just there to help support and keep the person alive. So again, just please have these conversations with our kiddos, right? Educate them, empower them, and give them some harm reduction. Well, how do we do some harm reduction? Some relaxation. So there is an amazing tool that all of us have access to, and 95% of all American teens have access to it. It's called the internet. You can YouTube breathing technique videos. You can YouTube, calming music, right? Have our kids learn how to do that. Have our kids try different breathing techniques. So for younger kiddos, you might do animal breathing techniques. So that can look like, well, how does a cheetah breathe? Right? They breathe really fast. How does a turtle breathe? Slow, right? How does an elephant breathe? Right? Again, we're talking about breathing techniques. We're just having a little fun with it. What's the main purpose of doing these breathing techniques is to get the kids to recenter, refocus, and reconnect with their prefrontal cortex, right? Some of our kids might prefer to listen to music. That can be a relaxation technique. Some of our kids might like to meditate or do yoga, right? There's lots of grounding techniques. A fantastic one is also having worry stones. So you can make the worry stones. There's great YouTube videos on them. You can make them out of cement yourself. And they're just a little stone that the kids get to make, color, and then they keep it in their pocket. So anytime they start getting anxious, they can start rubbing the stone, right? So they're getting that tactile feel, right? Most of us probably remember those lovely fidget spinners, right? And that tactile response for a lot of our kids was almost like a relaxation because they were able to just flick it and keep holding it, right? Flicking it and having it spin, and then they let it go and break a wall, right? But it was really a design to just allow those kids to just focus and get some tactile response. And that's all we're talking about here. Practice these. You will be surprised how many of the kids actually respond really well when they start getting some deep breathing in. They get some more oxygen going into their bloodstream, and it also gives them that extra couple of seconds just to kind of think about, do I want to run out the door? Do I want to cuss my caregiver out? Do I want to maybe just chill for a second? Do I want to apologize, right? It's a great kind of pause so they can think about it before they make their next action. So that's why I would say if you're going to do the animal breathing, I would say do 10 turtle breaths, or 10 elephant breaths, or 10 whatever, the kiddo likes doing the most, right? That way that gives them at least what, good 30, 45 seconds to just try to reconnect, take a deep breath, maybe lower the adrenaline level, lower the anxiety level, right? But you know what that also gives us? Time to lower our anxiety, lower our emotional level, right? Gives us time to do a couple deep breathing techniques too, right, folks? So what we're talking about, especially unfortunately substance use disorder, SUD, is on the rise with kids because at the end of the day, it's a coping mechanism. None of us would say it's a positive, good coping mechanism, but it is a coping mechanism. And how many of the kids nothing will ever happen to me, right? I am invincible. That's a pretty common thing for most of our kids to talk about. So when we're talking about what could happen, let's just pull up a fact sheet. That's what we've provided here for you folks. So everything, there's several pages here. You'll have access to all of this so you can print it off. And this is just a great way to have the conversation. Well, so like on this one, well, I drink alcohol, but nothing's ever going to happen to me. It's not going to do anything. Okay, well, let's talk about what happens when you first do it and what happens over time, right? This can be critical. So the other thing I really recommend is if your kiddo's taking medications, you might want to do some Googling of use this sheet and then also see what does that substance do with their medications, right? Because it could have the exact opposite effect of what the meds are for. It could cause more problems, right? So it's great to have these facts. And kids are always going to think, you're an adult, you're lying, it's never going to happen to me. Well, let's break it down. So if kids are engaging in using, say, ecstasy, what does it really do to you? Well, list right there. Increases your blood pressure, increases your blood flow. You can have hallucinations, blurred visions, right? Paranoia. Well, what is it doing long term to me? Well, I only do it a couple of times a month, right? I only do it when I go out and party. Well, it actually can lead to liver damage, increased risk of heart attacks and strokes, right? Can also, interrupt sleep, interrupt your behaviors, right? So this is just a fantastic sheet to just go through the kiddos, be able to provide them concrete facts, because you know what? They don't believe us as caregivers, right? They think nothing's ever going to happen to them. So here's one of the sheets. Oh, hey, look at this. Now we have another one. So inhalants, that was a really big one for a lot of kids. So if you have a kiddo and you're going through like Axe body spray, you're going through compressed air cans a lot, they could be inhaling it. I see a couple of you are smiling. You know exactly what I'm talking about with these kids, right? Sometimes they will use that as a substance, and we as a caregiver go, "Oh shit, they're just, they just like to smell good. That's why they're going through an Axe can a week. That's why they're going through an Old Spice can a week." Well, is it that, or are they huffing it, right? So what does that do to them? Well, there you go. At first, right? Look at long term though, folks. You're causing permanent brain damage. Right? This isn't me as a parent just worried about my kid and I'm saying don't do it because you could die. This is what it's telling you that's really going to happen to you, folks. So providing that and just being that upfront and honest and giving them the information, right? So I'm sure most of us probably immediately eyeballed marijuana, right? Probably most of us did, because that's usually what a lot of our kids are engaged in. Well, what is it doing at first? And now let's talk about what is it doing long term, right? Again, this isn't me as a parent making stuff up, trying to scare my kids straight. This is factual. This has been scientific. This is what these drugs are doing to you. This is why, as a parent, I am worried that you're doing X, Y, Z. And don't even get me started on fentanyl being laced in any of this, right? Fentanyl can be laced in cigarettes. It can be laced in marijuana. So many kids have said, oh, I just do pot. There's nothing bad in that. You don't know. So again, going through, there is one here that we have to always remember of, is that ADHD medication. If your kid is, cheeking them and not actually taking them like they're supposed to, some kids will sell their ADHD medications to other kids. So that's something to always remember. It's why we lock up all of our medications, right, folks? That's why we have our kids take the meds in front of us to make sure that they are taking it and they're not saving them up. Another, and then again, just more prescription stuff. One thing I want y'all to really think about too, though, is over-the-counter, supplements can also be used as a, kind of substance drug. So you have sometimes that kids that will shoplift cough syrup and drink cough syrup because of the alcohol content in it. One thing that caught me totally off guard was Benadryl. Benadryl taken in high enough dosages actually can cause hallucinations, auditory visual hallucinations, memory loss, and for some it can be up to 72 hours. Pretty sure you can get Benadryl at almost every single gas station in America, right, folks? All right, we're gonna watch our video, so you might have to turn your sound up. Rachel, if you can just, shout out that the audio works, I'd appreciate it. It starts quiet. Folks. So that's a great YouTube video. I've got it in the directory on the Google Drive, so you can download and watch it if you would like. Again, the reason I have that in here is I really want us to think about is that there's not always going to be warning signs. And for a lot of times it's perception reality. And a couple of those that I really appreciated was like the kid that was yawning, and what would a teacher think if the kid's always yawning in class? They're staying up late, they're goofing off, they're a bad student, but what was the reality? The reality was the kiddo was working fast food, was working night shift, right, to help support their family. Think about the stressors that all of us have, right? If we got to some of those root causes and we tried to look below what we're just seeing at the very surface level, you could find the true authentic person. And a lot of our kids have a hard time expressing themselves because, let's be honest, for a lot of times, who neglected and who hurt our kiddos? Adults. What are all of us? Adults, right? So it can be hard for them to feel comfortable to express things. We might never see warning signs that our kiddos are going to run, that our kiddos are distressed, that they are in crisis, right? That's what that video was just trying to help us remember, is that we only see the surface level, folks. That's all we really see. Here's another great worksheet that can be used of how can we support kids? What are some of those crisis points? How can we avert them? One of the things a lot of people tell me is they immediately kind of go from 0 to 100. Well, most of our kids truly don't go 0 to 100. There's individual points that we just missed, right? And that's what this is talking about, of what are those resources and supports? What are some of those stress factors? How can we help support? Right. So again, here's some of those prevention tips. So this first one off to the left is actually our DCYF form, and then the one on the right is from the RNS services. So, if you can talk with the kiddo, we'll start with the RNS form, like, what could we do here in this situation or in this house, or is it a school situation, is it a friend situation? What's the issue? What could we do maybe? What could we do that would make you feel safe here? What could we do to make you, reduce that anxiety? Some of our kids want to leave because they, want to be out there, or they're afraid, or they're embarrassed of something, or whatever that stress point is. This is just a way of trying to help. What is there something else we could do, right? So think about this. There's some great tips in here. The other one is, what's the plan, right? Do they have a plan? Are they just winging it as they go, right? What do they do? I really love the bottom question, and it's something I really encourage you all to really think about, is when one of our kids comes on the run, they come back home, we debrief, we just ask, hey, are you safe? Did anything happen while you're out there? Are you hungry? Do you want to take a shower? That's all we ask the first night, right? Put that on here so they know exactly what's going to happen when they return from a run, right? Eliminate that fear that they're going to be yelled at, they're going to be screamed at, they're going to be grounded for life, right? All of those things, right? Eliminate it. Worry about what that restorative justice will be, the next day. Are they going to do extra chores? Are they going to do, XYZ, whatever it is, right? Put that on here so that you eliminate the fear, so they know exactly what's expected and what's going to happen when they return from the run. My kids know, hey, if they go on the run, here's my run sheet. I have a form I fill out every single time. And then when they come back, we ask those questions, and I have to call in, right? We all have to call back in National Missing Exploited Children and call the after hours number, right? And just let them know the kids are back. That's what we do. So that's just your questions to ask. On the other side is a DCYF form. This again has more bullet points, right, of what you can talk about. I really appreciate the sense of belonging and safety, right? Kids that have been traumatized, even though we know we're a safe home, even though we know we're here to protect them, do they feel safe in your home? Right? Is that maybe what they're running away from? They don't feel safe. They don't feel connected, right? They don't feel they're belonged, they're welcomed, they're loved, they're appreciated for being part of your families, right? Make sure that we're always asking open-ended questions with our kids. That is so critical, no matter what the reason is that they're giving you, no matter if you're like, dude, this is such a, ridiculous thing. Perfect example. When I was young, my parents used to, would tell me every time my little heart would get broken, oh, you'll find another girl, you'll find another fish out in the sea, right? There's lots of girls out there, right? Is all of that true, what my parents were telling me? Yeah. But to little 8-year-old Nathan who just had their heart broken, did any of that feel like I'm being heard or I'm being valid? I'm not being validated by any of those words, even though they're correct, but that's not how I felt. Try to layer on activities that you can do as a family. Dinner times, breakfast times, right? Cooking together, those can be important ones. Doing chores together, doing little outings together can be really important. We do a lot of ILS, independent living skills. So we'll have our kids go grocery shopping with us. They'll make a shopping list, they cook, right? All of those things can make them feel more connected to the family and feel like they're giving back to the household. And again, it's just a basic kind of grounding principle. If you know the kiddo is going to go on the run, and you just have a kid that no matter what goes on, they just get really stressed out, they go on a run. Okay, well, what can you do to help keep them safe? Well, like I said, if I know where they're going to go on the run, we make sure we pre-program their cell phone with all those numbers, the GPS maps, make sure they know about Greyhound, make sure that they know they can always call 911, make sure they know they can call DCYF after hours and that one of the workers will come pick them up. We make sure all of those things, but then take it to the next level of making sure they also know what are maybe some of the teen crisis lines they could call. Does everybody know that the kids' insurance is still active when they're on the run? So they could be on the run and they get in an accident, they can still use their insurance. They can still get their medications. They can even use the 24-hour nurses advice line or the telehealth to get medical advice for themselves, right? Pre-programming where the homeless shelters can be really critical for some of our kids so they know where they can at least go to get a meal, right? Just give them these resources. Make sure they understand how to stay safe. Encourage them not to put themselves in dangerous situations, right? A shelter could be a lot safer than sleeping on the street. Right? So, and then this is just again, helping the kids identify some social emotional and some, our words have power. Our kids don't understand a lot of, these concepts. So helping them just to identify, give them definitions, and just really build up their self-esteem. So as our kids are developing, right, they're trying to figure out who their true authentic self is. And a lot of times the kids just don't know who they are yet. So that's why they get influenced pretty heavily, right? They want to be connected. How many of our kids were the third placement, fifth placement, 15th placement, right? How connected do these kids feel to the school, to their friends, to their home, right? A lot of them are really disconnected. They don't have these other domains of their identity yet, so they can be easily influenced. Well, if you want to hang out with us, you got to shoplift. Well, if you want to hang out with us, you need to do X, Y, Z. Well, I'll break up with you if you don't do X, Y, Z, right? We see a lot of that where they just don't have any self-esteem yet. So we as caregivers need to talk to them about self-esteem. We need to support them. We need to empower them. So this is, how can we, again, work on managing those stressors? Because our kids are going to be stressed. I get stressed out of work all the time, right? We all do. How do I manage that? Well, hey, I've gotten 40 years of, experience and under my belt, and I know how to manage my stress. This is some of the techniques that you can utilize, right? So again, encouraging the kiddos to write down what works, what are the plans, putting things in place on the front side so they're able to kind of change that scene or steer away to better supports. So when they're in that middle of that crisis, this is one of my favorite ones because you know what? Kids don't realize when they get triggered, like, how does that feel in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? Right? So many of our kids don't even realize, like, maybe they start clenching their fists, their stomach starts hurting, they start gritting their teeth, maybe they start standing up more, maybe they start scratching, right? And being able to help them let's break down this of what got you to feel this uncomfortable and what was kind of those progressive steps that we can maybe intersect if we can identify them. That's what this whole 2-page worksheet is talking about is, what happens? Because a lot of our kids are so dysregulated, right? Basic TBRI principle, trust-based relational interventions, right? Our kids are disconnected from their bodies where they don't even know, oh, well, you know what? I'm actually really hungry. I'm really thirsty. I'm really tired. I don't know that that's the root cause of why now I'm really aggravated and I'm really upset. And that's the root cause of why I just blew up because I haven't eaten in 8 hours and I have low blood sugar. right? So being able to help the kids kind of reconnect with their bodies can be so critically important because it also helps them. Well, what are those warning signs when, for that example, of like I haven't eaten in 6 hours? What are those warning signs? Well, I kind of get a little headache. Maybe, my hands feel weird, or maybe my tummy starts growling, right? Helping them break down, well, okay, so you hadn't eaten in 6 hours. This is how you're feeling. And then when I asked you to clean your room, you screamed at me and threw something, right? Well, could it have been because you were hungry? And now they start trying to help them connect the dots of what were those feelings in your body, right? That got you to when you were about to flip your lid. So that's all this worksheet is trying to help us with and help our youth with, of just identifying, breaking everything down. All right, and then again, just who can help them in the communities, who can support them. So this is a fun little graph of, who is there to support you. And that's what they're kind of talking about with their partnership with Greyhound, helping identify who can be there to support you, from your school counselors to your WISE team to your social worker. Maybe if we're super lucky as foster parents get to be on the bus with our kids, right? Helping them be able to identify who has their back, who's there to support them, right? That's what we want them to know. And we want to encourage them. Well, it's great you have all your friends on here. Is there any maybe adults that you feel are supportive of you? And if they still like, no, I don't have anybody. And then maybe ask them, well, what do I need to do to join you on this bus? What do I need to do so I've always got your back? Right? And this is just a great opportunity again to have those conversations, or maybe ask well, how come you don't have an adult on there? Right? Open-ended questions, folks. They'll take you everywhere. All right, so, and this is our, kind of debrief. And once the youth returns, what are we doing? Who's responsible for what? So in this situation, I have my own run sheet. My husband and I are the ones that, well, the kid returned. One of us is going to go visit with our kiddo, make sure, and just ask the basic questions. Basic questions of, are you safe? What do you need? Do you want to take a shower? Do you want to go to bed? Do you want food? Do you want your medication? Do you want to brush your teeth? Right? What is that? What do you need right now? We don't grill them of what they did. I'm not worried about any of that. I just want to know the basics. Are you safe? And what do you need? Right? We can talk tomorrow. We can talk the next day about, what happened, the whys behind it. Having that system in place is so critically important, because my stress levels the first couple of times I had my kids run, I was really high, right? Because I was really like, oh my gosh, I got to do this and make all these calls and blah, 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 right? So it's a great way of just having, for myself, this is how I maintain my own regulation of knowing, okay, well, when they come back, my husband's going to talk with them. I'm going to make the phone calls into the foster agency, call the social worker, call after hours, call National Center. We make sure the kiddo's physically safe, and then we'll talk about things the next day. This tip sheet on the right-hand side is, of course, from DCYF, as we all see the letterhead. This is, again, some great conversations of asking, maybe because you're so dysregulated and you're still really triggered and upset, how could they run from my house? I give them everything, I would love on them, and they still run, right? Well, here's some great questions and primers for you as a caregiver to remember when the kiddo is home, is safe. Try to get to those root causes. What can we do, to prevent you from running again? Did anything happen while you were on the run? What is some of the people you could talk to when you feel that way, right? So these are all resources that are available to you, folks. That's what I have for the presentation for you tonight, folks. So all of the, if you want to stop the recording, we'll go to Q&A.